Alright, so look at this nice cable in the way. That's exactly what I'm going for here. Not. Okay. So here we are. Shrink this down a little bit. Okay. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? So you can see using the GW handle that I was using earlier over the weekend. Did a little review of that. So the only things left to do on this really, as you can see, I did a little bit more work on the base. So now I just need to finish up, tighten up some details here and there. So to do so, we will just get started. I'm probably gonna pop out, let's see what color. We'll do this skeleton bone color. Set that down. So again, this miniature is for this month's Patreon raffle. So if you're one of my Patreon members, you will have access to that. You do have to be one of the levels that it's actually eligible for, but also uploaded a lot of videos there this weekend. I think 14 new videos, or not 14, 4 new videos went up. 14, that's pretty crazy. Alright, so this is a little bit too watery, so I'm going to add a dropper or two. A dropper or two of this War Colors color. Now we'll see how we're looking. Yep, that's good. Alright. Brand new brush and all. Let's see. Still gotta get used to using it though. But then again, this is also the first time I've actually been painting with it, so now's the real test. But it is pretty comfortable. It fits my hand perfectly, so definitely worth it on my end.
That fragile bubble of life float on a sea of nothing.
There we go. So just using that color for the stitching. Trying to see if there's any, well yeah, right here. Thanks for hanging out today though. Hope you guys are having a good week so far. I know it is only Monday. Hope you guys had a good weekend as well. I actually got that a little bit where it didn't need to be, so I wonder if it's still wet. Should be able to shove it out. There we go. There's some stitches here on the side of the bag that I need to get. Let's see. Okay. As always, if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to ask in the chat. Just working on this Rackham model currently. I'm not happy with that either. I need to get some wash out here just so I can correct any mistakes I may have made here and there. There we go. All right. Matthew, just letting you know, I just saw your comment, but it doesn't pop up in the chat. If you're trying to send something to me while I'm working, make sure you have the chat window open. Otherwise, I have to navigate away to see it. All right. Sorry about that. Gotta make sure my camera's in the right spot. All right. Now that I'm using the handle too, my hand's in a different place than it normally is, so I'm having to get used to that. Alright, so not bad, not bad. Looking to see if there's any other spots with stitching. Not really seeing them. Alright, so we can go ahead and use this same color as the base color for the toenails and fingernails. Then we can wash it down, highlight it back up. Those are really some of the only areas that we still had to do. Since we did use a War Colors color, this is really thin, super thin application, but it doesn't really matter that much because we're going to go back and wash it. Just as long as we get a little bit of that pigment on there, it'll all be okay. Later today, by this evening, I'll have the completed Anachrony images up as well. So we'll have that stuff, and then I'll probably also take images of this guy too. So we'll have all that work updated so you can see images, better pictures. Got a couple new commissions over the weekend as well, so I'll be excited to start working on those. Running a big special until Black Friday, the 25th. So there should be some more commissions coming in on top as we continue getting closer to Thanksgiving. Crazy that the year's almost over for sure. Alright, so just getting in there. I don't think... Oh, yeah, you can. I was going to say, I don't think you can see these fingernails, but yeah, you can. But this isn't even really painting. Like, we're just going to do a single wash, so it's not like we're doing anything detailed on the nails or anything like that. Still need to do... He does have some teeth in his mouth, so we could probably do the same thing. There we go. See, we hit the teeth there. Hit the teeth on this side. There we go. Got the teeth on that side. Alright, so all that's dry from what I can tell, so we can go ahead and do the washes. Gonna clean out the brush. Let's go ahead and do it dark. So I'm gonna use this strong tone, Army Painter strong tone. All right. So again, there's only a few days left before this guy gets raffled off, if that's something you're interested in. Plus all of the other content that goes up on the Patreon, so you can definitely check that out with the URL in the bottom right of the screen, but it's just patreon.com/minipaintingstudio. Did 4 speed streams up there, and then this weekend is when the next class starts, so like the real first big class that's going to go up on there. Doing all kinds of different stuff about brush control, brush technique. And the people on the Patreon are the ones that actually vote for what content they want to see created. So it's also a nice thing about it is you do have a say kind of in what you can see made and released next. So that'll be the next class that we're doing for the scholar level patrons. Throwing a wash on that metal leg band that's on there too. I'll go ahead and wash these down just because they're a little bit shiny, but I'm going to leave the top. There we go. Really, really subtle here with the washes. Okay. Since I do have this tone out as well, I think I'm going to tone down some of these pieces on the basing. So just going to apply a wash to it. Give it a little bit more depth, a little bit more shadow effect there. But not too much. Just a little bit more depth, since we already have the washout. This side, obviously, there's not much on there. Alright, so I'm thinking the next thing we tackle is probably going to be... Well, we can do the gold bangles, actually. We may as well do that next, because then the only thing left to do is his hair. So yeah, let's just do the gold bangles. So for that, we're going to go ahead and use... this, where is it? Antique gold? Which one? So the options that I'm trying to figure out is either brass or antique gold. I think this color. Or old gold, not antique gold by Vallejo. Oops, looks like my my camera arm is feeling the shakes today. There we go. Alright, so we're going to get some of that on there. And then I'm actually going to use the war paint mixing medium from Army Painter to thin this out. So not the quick shade medium, but the other one. Which one's the brand new brush? Here it is. So we're going to thicken this up quite a bit. Finally got the handle of the hang of figuring out how to use this stuff because I read up on it a little bit more from some other people that have given it a shot already. So let's see. Yep, that should be good. Alright. So now what we can do is go in and start layering it back in. Without losing a lot of the nice detail that we've been able to put on there. And it will appear thicker as we apply it just because of the actual resin that it's been mixed with. But as it dries, it'll be nice and smooth so we can taper out all the different stuff that's on there. And by stuff that's on there, I mean the shadows from the washes that we applied. So they'll all still remain the same. While the pigment that we're applying right now, sorry about that, there we go. The pigment that we're applying right now dries a little bit different. Keeping in mind, too, that most of the, well, really the only other metallics that are on here are the chains around his neck and then the really heavily weathered gunmetal. So I don't want it to look like really shiny, brand new, anything like that. I want it to pretty much remain weathered. But it shouldn't be too much of an issue to keep it that way. Vallejo metallics being the actual pigment flakes in there being a little bit bigger than other companies. I'd say they're closer to Games Workshop in size. My favorite brand to use for metallics being Army Painter, but I just want to use this kind of old gold color, which they don't produce a metal that looks like that, so that's really the only reason. Otherwise, they're my go-to for pretty much all metallics. Let's see, you gotta get the rest of the armband there. And you can see what the war paint mix did to it. It's super thick. But you have to remember about half of that is see-through resin that's going to dry. So technically, right, it is thinning it out. Just not physically thinning it out. Alright, so I think that application's pretty much good. Gonna apply a little bit more. Let's see. Might hit this edge right there. There we go. I want to make sure, too, I'm not highlighting up anywhere where the shadow's actually going to be hitting right, because the light source that I've done this whole time is coming from directly above. So if that's not going to actually get any light on it, then I'm not going to worry about that. Yeah, I forgot I was going to do this. He has like a half moon circlet type of deal going on. I may just tint what's already there, so let me see if I can actually get away with that. So I just thinned this out a whole lot onto the actual brush itself. Should tint it down a little bit. Then we can always wash it too if it looks too weird, but the pigment should be thin enough to where it's not going to make a huge difference. Alright, so we'll let that stuff dry. So now we can move on to doing all of the wonderful individual strands of hair, because obviously that's something a sane person would want to do. So I'm trying to figure out what color I actually want to do, like base color on it. I'll have to start mixing it. So I'm gonna mix it with watercolors though. Actually, I could just mix it right here. I think I may do just that. That's still a little bright, so I'm gonna mix it down a little bit. Probably with our favorite color, raw sienna. And we'll move it from there. If you're just now joining, thanks so much for hanging out today. Hope you're having a wonderful Monday so far. Hope you had a great weekend. If it's your first time seeing my channel, definitely give it a like. I think I'm like 5 away or 4 away from hitting 500, so that would be amazing if we could hit that this week or today during this stream. I was going to do a raffle when I hit 500 and give something away as well, so definitely make sure that you've liked the page so you can be eligible for that. If you're interested in winning this miniature, it is for my Patreon subscribers, so the information for that's in the bottom right-hand part of the screen, right underneath my hand. So let's not go for his face, which is the easier place to mess up first. Let's go ahead and start on his little tail here. So the trick here, first of all, since I've already done the basing, is to use some of that to our advantage. But I'm also not necessarily focused upon doing every single strand. Instead, I'm going to do mostly implied highlights on it. But so the color that I'm using right now is kind of like a golden tan. And then we'll bring it up to more of like a bright blonde color. But this, again, we're using watercolors. So their paints are super transparent, translucent. They're really thin, so they dry fast. Really good stuff for high detail work. Using a size 00 brush, making sure that I have a sharp brush tip the entire time. Obviously, too, right, we opened up a brand new brush today for this stuff, so unless I just had a dud, shouldn't be too much of an issue. Keeping the light source from above in mind as well as we're doing the highlight, so that's kind of where I'm trying to keep it. Alright, so moving on to the other sections here. Just hitting the tops of all those ridges. Obviously, too, right, I could dry brush the stuff, but we're doing a display level miniature, so I honestly would never dry brush anything on a display level. You're just doing layer after layer of highlight work, stuff like that. Some of the spots I am painting over some of the separated areas because I know that that's where the brightest highlight's gonna go. So it's kind of like layering in those bright highlights. But anyway, you can see the direction it's going there. Alright, well, I'm at least happy with this color, so I'm not too concerned with the rest of it, so we can start moving back into all the other fur. So the highlights are not going to start immediately under the cheekbone because the cheekbone is so protruded, and I've already done a good job of like shadowing that in, matching the skin color. So instead, we're going to start shading it in probably about where the tip of my nail is where we will start. Ooh, let me reposition the handle. I almost dropped the whole thing. There we go. Definitely don't want to drop him. So really just doing the highlights to round out the body and shape of the hair. Giving it more 3 dimension, let me let me reword that entire sentence. Giving it a more three-dimensional feel. There we go. A rounded feel. Applied a little bit too much right there, but that's not a big deal. I'm going to water it down a little bit too. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. And I'll do my best to answer them. Some common questions on this I can just answer really quick, though. It is a Rackham confrontation model, Wolfen of Yila. That company, unfortunately, is out of business. However, you can purchase some recasts, and I think they still have like a couple originals, too. I'm not sure. From the company, well, it's Legendarian Miniatures, but the web address is cadwallin.com. So you can still find some of the old Rackham stuff on there for much cheaper than it normally would be. Some of them are resin recast, and then some other ones are metal. So I do know that is available there. And I've heard good things about them, so you don't have to be concerned if you're buying, since they are overseas. If you're in America, at least. They're in Europe. I think Ukraine, if I'm remembering correctly. So just working on the eyebrow, layering that color up. Again, I'm doing a direct from the top light source, so I'm only concerned with doing highlights that would be happening directly from above. Obviously, the top of his hair here, or head, he has hair as well, but that's just going to be directly on top. There we go. Oops, bumped it with the hat that I'm wearing. Sort of trying to feather the edges here of the hair that's on the top of his head. That way I have a little bit more to work with whenever we're doing those highlights. So this guy probably has, to answer your question, Lee, how many hours have gone into this mini? Probably 6 at this point, if I had to guess. Usually my display level work is between like 5 to 10 hours, depending on the miniature. This one, not too hard, because there were like, if you go back a couple days, last week I worked on him as well. So there were some areas that didn't take like any time at all. Others that took a little bit more time. The skin was probably what took the longest. Doing the base colors and everything. But yeah, he's probably about 5 or 6 hours at this point. Trying to figure out my... There it is. Trying to figure out where I moved my focus to. Alright, but I think that's good for the stuff on top of his head. Now we can focus on this side right here. And all of my paint is drying, so I keep watering it down. It's not drying, but it's thickening. Like, it's barely thickening, because it is watercolor paint, but it's enough to where I kind of notice. So I don't want to re-palette it, but we may have to if I'm not fast enough here, so I'm going to work a little bit faster. Without trying to smudge anything or mess it up. Let's go a little bit quicker just so I can keep that color on the palette. Then we can go and highlight up that final highlight color. And it'll be ready to go. So again, if you're just now joining, thanks for hanging out. If you haven't liked my page before, you haven't seen my stuff before, I'm a full-time commission painter. I stream my work Monday through Friday whenever I'm working on stuff, so there's always material to be seen. I don't think I really shared this anywhere that would, with people that would need commission work for any reason, but if you ever do, I am running a special throughout the rest of this month, essentially until Black Friday, so you can get some good deals there. But this guy that we're working on today is for my Patreon people. I raffle off a display level miniature every single month. So this is the guy that's going to be given away for free this month. So you still have time to sign up and be eligible for that. And I do all kinds of stuff on the Patreon. I edit and I speed up all the streams from the week. Publish them there. I do classes, tutorials. There's a Facebook group. There's all kinds of stuff involved. So... but it is relatively new. I think it's like a week and a half old at this point, but I have some people on there already. A lot of content on there already for you, so if that interests you, feel free to check it out. Otherwise, I just appreciate you hanging out with me while I work. It's always fun. Alright, so I think those base highlights are good for us. We'll be able to move to the highlight section, so a brighter yellow, blonder color, which has been the goal all along. So I'm going to pull out the new color for that mix. This one's toned a little bit differently, so it's definitely more golden yellow, and then I'm going to add more of the Flesh number 2 from Warcolor. What I find interesting about Warcolor is when you mix it with another brand, it loses most of its pigment. But I think that's the nature of their paint in general because it's so thin. Alright, so thumb test. That looks good to me. Nice and thin. Make sure that tip is in shape. Alright. So now we're going to go in and do the really, really detailed highlights on there. The goal here is to keep that illusion of the direct spotlight above light source, so the highlights should reflect that. And these are all going to be smaller, obviously, than what we applied last time. Or, I guess, yeah, I mean, smaller is the right word. It just feels like the wrong word. So that's what we're doing now, is just going in, highlighting up these individual strands with a much yellower toned color. Much more blonde, golden, sorta hayish color. Really just kind of feathering the tips of the areas that we had already highlighted, and that's really all we have to worry about. Normally on something like this, I would be doing implied highlights. If this was a tabletop or heroic level commission, instead of doing all of them at once. So I actually just applied too much there. But what I'll do is I'll take this wash and push it back, just like that. There we go. So we're going to do this eyebrow here, like directly from above. There we go. All right, so we'll do this side of the goatee. What's up, Richard? All right, there we go. So we're highlighting that section. But I think that looks good for those highlights. I think they're pretty much done. So we'll flip them. Let's take care of the tail first. And this is as bright as we'll get. We don't want to, sorry about that, my cat just jumped on the table, so it shook the camera. We don't want to overblow the contrast here, because we don't want it to kind of like... We don't want it to look like it's too much contrast. Oof, I can't talk. Compared to everything else we've already applied. You can see what we're doing. We're just keeping that highlight in the actual shape of the way that the light would hit it. Just that nice kind of golden blonde hair. Using a size 00 brush, synthetic sable. All right, so I gotta hold our breath here a little bit on these two individual strands of hair that are really long. I have no idea, Seth. I haven't looked. We were like a couple away from 500 when I started, so hopefully over 500. I can't see that information, though, while I'm streaming, so... Don't know what to tell you. Hopefully I've hit 500. If not, make sure to like the page. Because that'd be awesome. If I could hit 500 today, it'd be really great. Always appreciate it. Alright, so that's fine. I may do a little wash in between those last two to pick them up. Alright, so let's move on to the side of his face. I remember a long time ago, I'd started to work on this guy. I'm talking like super long time ago. Maybe 4 months. I just was working on him for fun. And somebody was like, I kept referring to this miniature as a guy. And they were like, how do you know that werewolf is a guy? And if you have never seen Rackham female werewolves, trust me, you would know. They, I'll put it this way, they make sure they sculpt them well endowed. Very shapely, feminine forms, so you would know if this was a female. Stop jumping around, cat, please. Alright, so we're just doing those little edge highlights there. Just a couple spot highlights on that edge, and I think that's really all I want to do because his head is sort of tilted back just a little bit, so I'm not going to go too far in beyond that. Add a little bit of water. There's something going on outside my window here. I don't know what this is. Oh, someone's moving. Okay, I keep hearing all this banging, and I'm like, what is going on, man? Always something going on where I live. Never a peaceful moment, sadly. Alright. There are those final highlights there. Let's see, okay, so now we just have the... Oh no, the top of his head. Oh, right, duh. I'm like, just the ponytail. No, we haven't even done this eyebrow. All the easy parts. Alright, there's the eyebrow. On these, just feathering out the edges of all the other highlights. Like so. It's really small work there. The camera's a little bit too close for that to focus, but you get the idea. That's the only downside to this. This actually is removable, by the way, on the GW handle, or the Citadel handle. I believe it's just a 1/4 inch screw, so you could actually attach that to a tripod or a scissor arm if you wanted to. That'd be... I actually saw that and I was like, I could mount this to a scissor arm and that'd be amazing. But I don't actually know if I would paint that way. But the scissor arm is how I mount my camera over my shoulder anyway, so... If for whatever reason you needed to paint with something completely, like, out of your way, then you could do it that way with the scissor arm, but... Alright, so we're just working on the ponytail. Or the wolf tail. I don't know if they would call it a ponytail, necessarily. This guy came out originally... Oop, got some paint on my finger. It originally came out of a box of these, like, sky pirate type dudes. One was a shaman, one was a couple elves, maybe 1 or 2 elves, and then this guy with the gun, another guy with the bow, and then I think a guy with, like, a scimitar and a buckler. But originally that box was, like, $40-something, and then now I think you can get the whole box for, like, just under $30 from the Cadwall and Company. I don't know if they're metal or not, but they should be the same quality. Alright, so happy with that. Trying to see what else we need to kind of knock out here. So no, the actual Citadel holder, definitely worth it, only because I don't know if you saw the other review, but I'll go ahead and pop this guy out. So the way that it works, it's spring-loaded, and the springs are super tight. You can see there are 2 different tiers. The top tier are for larger bases, middle tier for smaller bases. It works with hex bases, round bases, anything that it can clamp to. So like here's the Reaper Bones miniature. Oh, no. No. There we go. stretched it out, clamped it in there. And obviously, right, it looks like it's sculpted for round bases on the bottom, which is sort of true, but anywhere that your base is going to hit its edges, it'll lock it in. It also works with smaller bases. I don't know where I have... Oh, yeah, this is a 25 millimeter base. Here's the guy from the other Patreon tutorial example video. Right, so he's on there just fine. Bigger bases it fits too, from the last stream that we did. This guy obviously has to fit on the top tier. Right, but you can see how he's fitting on there just like that. So, I mean, it's really nice. The other thing that I noticed, too, if you're someone that doesn't attach bases, obviously, if you're already at that stage in your life, then you probably are using, like, cork or actual wood to pin it. But you can still put pins in between these because it's like a vice grip, right? And you can still hold the miniature that way. So it is really versatile. This is hollow and completely lightweight. This has a little bit of weight to it. Obviously, you can see the spring brackets in there. There's 2 on each side, which is nice, and they're connected by pins. Somebody was like, I don't know how long this would last or if it would break. And this is something I didn't actually know when I did my live review of it, but you can see its guts working right there. So, I mean, I don't even know how the spring could break because it's wrapped around the actual little pins that they've installed in there. So, and are there 3? Actually, there are 3 because there's also a middle pin right there. So there are 3 different springs, so 6 springs total. So, I mean, I don't know, man. This is probably one of their best products they've put out in a long time, in my opinion at least. And then if you have like cavalry bases, really long, skinny bases, anything like that, they work as well. You just pinch them on the sides. And this is something you have to use too, at least myself. I don't have like I don't even know, man, a lumberjack grip or something, but they're super tight, so you have to pull pretty hard, so I have to use 2 hands, but... Oh, look at that. We got paint on the metal, so... Let's go ahead and fix that issue. Tone it down real quick with this wash, and then we'll just go back over it. But anyway, I highly suggest it. It's just $8. And believe me, I've seen it all already, so you can go ahead and save your arguments about, oh, why not just use blue tack, da-da-da-da-da. Because blue tack does eventually drop your miniatures if they're top heavy. Like this guy was falling off of the blue tack that I used, which I still use blue tack, don't get me wrong. It's literally all over my desk, all over the place, but I've never seen a miniature holder that clamps in the miniatures like this, like a vise. So that's my argument. But anyway, everybody likes their own stuff, so it's cool, man. So I'm looking back at the little moon pendant that he has, so I'm going to apply a wash on it, on the edges. Give it some more definition at least. There we go. Giving him a once over, maybe going back in on the toes here. But I think we have essentially gotten everything on there. I could do something there. Maybe he has blue, orange. I don't want to do green. I could do it maybe red or... No, I wouldn't want to do red. Maybe purple. I wouldn't want to do him another tan color. We could probably get away with the purple, though. Why not? Let's do that. We'll go ahead and see how this looks. I'm gonna use Alien Purple by the Army Painter. See how it turns out. And I don't mean that in terms of like, well, let's see how the Army Painter works out. I just mean in terms of the actual method, we're gonna use here. So, I'm gonna throw the purple on. Because I already know the highlight color that we're going to use. I'll probably do a blue wash. Whoops. I made a rule the last time I wore a hat while I was streaming that I wouldn't wear a hat because the bill of it always bumps into my camera arm, but clearly I did not listen to myself. Alright, so just layering on that purple. If you're just now joining, thanks for hanging out today. I see there's a good number of people hopping in and out. Hope you're having a great Monday. We are currently working on my Patreon giveaway miniature today. Still have time to sign up for the Patreon for a chance to win this guy. Also, this weekend is this weekend the... No, it's the third Saturday. So yeah, this would be the new lesson that's going to be released this weekend. All right, so that's pretty dry. Now I'm going to grab a... the model has the same last name as you. Vani. Well, this is a Wolfen of Yila model, so I'm not sure where you're necessarily getting that information, but... Okay, so we're going to use a blue tone wash. I mean, really, I don't even have to wash it, but we're going to do just the bottom lip. So I'm just applying the wash to the bottom. Well, actually, we'll just make it easier on myself. So I'll just hold it like this, and then you'll see I'm doing it to the top. But we're just simulating the shadow. And this is nice, too, because we're applying a cool tone to a warm tone. So again, as with the rest of the paint job, we're mixing the temperatures as much as we can on the colors, making it all much more dynamic. Using a Games Workshop wash right now. Not the biggest fan of their washes, but it'll get the job done for what we want right now, at least. Alright, so we still have the alien purple on there. I'm going to drop in blue violet from Vallejo, and that's going to be our highlight color. Alright, so this may or may not be a terrible idea. We'll see how it goes. Actually, it's so reflective, I can't actually see. Raffle off bases? I don't really know anybody that would want a raffled off base, but I know I'm going to do a basing class. Alright, so we're going to attempt to start doing this. I was going to do each side, but since I can't see because the purple paint is so reflective, like there's a sheen to it, we're just going to do the actual banding. Then I'll probably apply a wash to them, but we'll see. Yeah, I'll just highlight it up and then we'll do a wash. Alright, and then I'll just darken that up with the wash as well. But anyway, that was really the last element that I was thinking, like, what would we do to it? So I'm pretty happy with the way this guy turned out. Pretty good, pretty good. And yeah, wow, right at an hour. So that's not bad. I have some other stuff I'm going to finish up today anyway, some other commission work. And then I'll take pictures of this guy, all the other commissions that I finished up recently, and I'll have those uploaded to the page as well. So, for the 20 of you watching, thanks so much for hanging out today. I always appreciate it. Make sure to like the page. You'll be able to see the other stuff that I do. And like I said, I'm pretty sure I'm already at 500 after this stream. I'm not sure, but when I hit 500, I was going to figure out a raffle anyway, so we'll do another giveaway. This miniature is going to be raffled off to the Patreon people, so make sure if you're interested in anything on the Patreon, you can see it right over here where my finger's wagging, patreon.com/minipaintingstudio. I've got tutorials, speed streams, classes, product reviews, and then I also raffle off miniatures. So make sure to give that a peek if you're interested in any of that stuff, and I will see you tomorrow as we continue more work. So thanks so much. Always appreciate it. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.